Hello, this is Season 3, Episode 8 of the Emberhart podcast, the space where we forge resilient character and empower the next generation of girls and women to lead with courage. So, find a quiet corner, lean in, and let us get right into it. The freedom of being human. Self-compassion, connection, and letting go of the self-esteem game. Dear Amelia Emberhart, in a world that constantly encourages us to be better, do more, achieve faster, and stand out from the crowd, it is easy to believe that our worth depends on our performance. We compare ourselves to others, judge our mistakes harshly, and often feel alone in our struggles. Yet, one of the most profound lessons from Kristin Neff's book Self-Compassion is that our suffering is not a sign that something is wrong with us. It is a sign that we are human. We are all in this together. The word compassion literally means to suffer with. It reminds us that suffering is not an individual defect but a shared human experience. Every human being makes mistakes. Every person has regrets. Every person has moments of insecurity, embarrassment, failure, and self-doubt. As the saying goes, a clear conscience may simply be a sign of bad memory. Yet, when we struggle, we often feel uniquely flawed. We tell ourselves, I am the only one dealing with this. We look around and assume everyone else has their lives together while we are alone falling behind. This sense of isolation often intensifies our pain. Many of us know the experience of standing in a crowded room, surrounded by people, yet feeling completely disconnected. The loneliness is almost worse because we are physically among others while emotionally convinced that we do not belong. Self-compassion offers another perspective. Instead of focusing on what separates us, it reminds of what connects us. We are all imperfect. We all experience loss, disappointment, uncertainty, and failure. We are all navigating a world in which countless things can go wrong despite our best intentions. When we remember our shared humanity, our struggles become less personal and less isolating. We stop asking, why is this happening to me? And begin to recognize this is part of being human. Self-pity says, poor me. Self-compassion says, this hurts and I am not alone. The difference is profound. When our sense of belonging is rooted in our shared humanity rather than our achievements, status, or social acceptance, something remarkable happens. We can no longer truly be rejected. We already belong because we are human. Seeing clearly, the power of mindfulness. If shared humanity reminds us that suffering is universal, mindfulness helps us meet that suffering with clarity. Neff describes mindfulness as the clear seeing and non-judgmental acceptance of what is happening in the present moment. When something goes wrong, our minds often rush into problem-solving mode. We immediately try to fix, analyze, and escape the situation. While practical action is important, we frequently skip a crucial first step, acknowledging our pain. We focus on the failure itself rather than the suffering caused by the failure. We notice our flaws, but fail to notice the emotional wounds those flaws seem to create. Pain is a signal. It evolved to get our attention and warn us that something is wrong. Naturally, this makes us want to move away from discomfort as quickly as possible. Turning toward pain can feel deeply counterintuitive. Yet, mindfulness invites us to do exactly that. Instead of immediately resisting our experience, we pause and simply notice it. I am feeling hurt. I am feeling disappointed. I am feeling afraid. This ability to observe our experience is what Neff calls a kind of meta-awareness, awareness of awareness itself. It is the difference between being consumed by anger and noticing that anger is present. It is the difference between being swept away by anxious thoughts and recognizing that anxious thoughts are occurring. A helpful analogy is watching a movie. Sometimes we become so absorbed in the plot that we temporarily forget that we are sitting in a theater. Similarly, we become so absorbed in our thoughts and emotions that we forget that they are merely experiences passing through awareness. Mindfulness helps us step back into the role of observer. This distance creates freedom. We no longer have to believe every thought we think or every emotion we feel. We can choose which experiences deserve our attention and which require a more balanced perspective. Instead of reacting impulsively, we can respond wisely. Rather than shouting in anger, we can pause and ask, what is really happening here? Rather than assuming the worst, we can become curious. Often, suffering arises not only from pain itself, but from our resistance to pain. We compare reality to our ideals and become upset that life is not unfolding as we think it should. A traffic jam is inconvenient. Fighting mentally against the fact that the traffic jam exists often creates even more suffering. Many spiritual traditions express this truth in different ways. One simple formula captures it well. Suffering equals pain times resistance. Mindfulness helps reduce the resistance. It invites us to accept the present moment as it is before deciding what to do next. As the Serenity Prayer beautifully expresses, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Acceptance is not resignation. It is simply seeing reality clearly enough to respond effectively. The 3 doorways to self-compassion. Neff describes self-compassion as consisting of 3 essential elements that work together. First, we offer ourselves kindness and care. Second, we remember our common humanity and recognize that suffering is part of life. Third, we hold our thoughts and emotions in mindful awareness. Together, these 3 doorways transform the way we relate to difficulty. Rather than criticizing ourselves, isolating ourselves, or becoming overwhelmed by our emotions, we meet our experience with warmth, connection, and clarity. Emotional resilience through self-compassion. Human beings are wired by a negativity bias. From an evolutionary perspective, paying attention to threats increased our chances of survival. Our ancestors who noticed the lion hiding in the grass tended to live longer than those who focused exclusively on the beautiful sunset. As a result, our minds naturally pay more attention to negative experiences than positive ones. We often take what is good for granted while treating every problem as if our survival depends on solving it immediately. This tendency fuels rumination. We replay painful events from the past repeatedly, which often contributes to depression. We obsess over possible future problems, which often contributes to anxiety. Self-compassion interrupts this cycle. Instead of getting lost in the story surrounding our pain, we can bring attention to the physical sensation associated with it. Where do I feel this sadness in my body? What does this anxiety feel like? Can I comfort myself as I would comfort a friend? Importantly, self-compassion does not suppress difficult emotions. Research consistently suggests that pushing away unwanted thoughts and feelings often makes them stronger. The alternative is to embrace difficult emotions with kindness. Paradoxically, positive emotions such as warmth, care, and connection arise naturally when we stop fighting our pain. One of Neff's well-known self-compassion practices is a simple mantra. This is a moment of suffering. Suffering is part of life. May I be kind to myself in this moment. May I give myself the compassion I need. These words remind us that pain is not evidence of failure. It is evidence of being alive. And like all experiences, it will eventually pass. There is a deep wisdom in the old phrase, "This too shall pass." And perhaps even more wisdom in another, "The only way out is through." Opting out of the self-esteem game. Much of modern culture encourages us to pursue high self-esteem. At first glance, this seems sensible. Why would anyone not want to feel good about themselves? The problem is that self-esteem is often contingent. It depends on success, approval, achievement, attractiveness, status, or competence in areas we value. When we succeed, we feel worthy. When we fail, we question our worth. This creates an exhausting cycle. We become dependent on external validation. We monitor how others perceive us. We compare ourselves endlessly. We celebrate success briefly before moving the goalposts and chasing the next achievement. Psychologists sometimes refer to this as the hedonic treadmill. We work harder and harder merely to stay in the same emotional place. Even our greatest passions can become burdens when our identity becomes tied to performance. Research discussed by Neff suggests that high self-esteem is not necessarily associated with being a better person. It is often associated simply with believing that one is better. In some cases, highly self-focused self-esteem can drift into narcissism. When self-worth depends on being superior, criticism becomes threatening. Defensiveness, anger, and blame frequently follow. Self-compassion offers a different path. Instead of asking, "How valuable I am compared to others?" self-compassion asks, "How can I relate kindly to myself in this moment?" Success and failure still matter. We can still strive for excellence and growth, but our worth no longer hangs in the balance. Self-compassion does not require us to be special. It does not require us to be above average. It does not require constant proof that we deserve love, belonging, or respect. Instead, it reminds us that our value comes from our humanity itself. Ironically, people who practice self-compassion often enjoy healthy self-esteem as well. The difference is that their self-worth is not constantly under threat. Because they accept their imperfections, they do not need to defend their egos so fiercely. The ego does not disappear, it simply moves into the background. The freedom of self-compassion. Perhaps the greatest gift of self-compassion is freedom. Freedom from the endless comparison game. Freedom from believing every critical thought. Freedom from needing to prove our worth over and over again. Freedom from feeling alone in our suffering. When we embrace self-compassion, we begin to see ourselves not as isolated individuals struggling against the world, but as human beings participating in a shared experience. We suffer, we heal. We fail, we learn, we belong. And perhaps that is enough. As Kristin Neff's work reminds us, we do not need to become extraordinary in order to deserve compassion. We only need to recognize what has been true all along. We are human and we are all in this together. This is your moment. Take command and show us the path. Thank you for joining me today. If this episode sparked a new insight, please share it with a friend or leave a review to help others find us. You can find more resources at emberhart.com. Keep showing up, keep thinking, and stay strong. See you next time.